heart, but I don't know all the words to Kumbaya, so I'm not singing that. For those of you who saw her tweet yesterday. First of all, welcome. Thank you for being here this afternoon. This is an important day for Monroe County Democrats, for the town of Henrietta, and for the people of our community. Mike Yudelson has been town supervisor in Henrietta since his election in 2007. Prior to that, served as a member of the town board since his election in 2001 to that body. He has a long history of community involvement and has worked extensively with children and youth in our community, both at the Center for Youth and Threshold. He is someone who has been, despite our partisan differences and political differences, has been a friend for many years and someone who I have worked with. I want to talk a little bit about that relationship, but the reason we're here today is to welcome Mike Yudelson to the Democratic family as he changes his registration and leaves the Republican Party to become a Democrat. We are very, very excited about that. First of all, Mike's family roots are long in the Democratic Party, actually. His mom and dad, in particular his mom, Tanya, were active Democrats. She worked at Democratic headquarters, and although I didn't have the pleasure of knowing her, have heard stories that are legendary about her commitment to our party and to our community. Michael has been a friend, as I said, for many years, both through family and friends, but we really began to work together in earnest several years ago. He contacted me when Governor Patterson had talked about the elimination of the Genesee Valley Regional Market located on Jefferson Avenue in the heart of Henrietta. And the governor had proposed eliminating that authority, which would have meant a loss of thousands of jobs in our region and certainly a big hit to the economy of Henrietta and to its budget. At the time, Supervisor Yudelson called me. We worked for many, many weeks to fashion what ended up being a very important compromise, which retained the market authority and extended its benefits to many organizations in not only our county but throughout the region. We have worked together. I have often teased him about wanting him to come to the Democratic Party. Today, on the last day when you can change registrations, he has indicated a willingness to do that. I would also say we're very, very pleased. Someone of his caliber, someone of his intellect, someone of his compassion for people in this community means a great deal to the Democratic Party, so I'm very, very excited to have him join us. Before I call the supervisor to the podium, I do want to call on a colleague and friend of mine, Harry Bronson. Last year, as you know, we went through redistricting in the state of New York. You're required to do it every 10 years, and in that redistricting, Harry picked up, in a sense, in his district, the town of Henrietta. And when he and I first talked about the proposed change in the lines, one of the things that I said to him is that I thought he would enjoy very much the opportunity to work with Supervisor Mike Yudelson, and made introductions to them, and I'd actually like to ask Harry to just come up and say a few words about how that has worked out in his perspective on working with Mike Yudelson. My colleague and friend, Harry Bronson.
Thank you, Joe. I would like to also welcome Mike Yudelson to the Democratic family, and I'm very pleased that he is joining us in our party today. A year ago, as Assemblymember Morelli, Chair Morelli, just mentioned, a year ago, with redistricting, I took over representing the town of Henrietta. And although I had represented a very small sliver of Henrietta as a Monroe County legislator prior to that, there wasn't all that much involvement until my representation as an assembly member. And immediately after becoming the assembly member for the town of Henrietta, I met with Supervisor Yudelson, and he spoke to me about all the issues that the town addresses, the vision that he has for the town, and the work that he's been doing on behalf of the town residents. I have found Mike to be extremely dedicated to all the residents of Henrietta. He doesn't take a partisan approach to his representation of the residents for Henrietta, and he looks at problems in a way that most of us in elected office would like to look at problems, and that is considering all of the factors weighing the benefits and the risk, and then ultimately trying to make the best policy decision you possibly can for the residents. And Mike has done that year in and year out. And it's been a privilege working with him over the past year, and I look forward to working with him as the supervisor of the town of Henrietta in years to come. But now it's also going to be a privilege working with him within the Democratic family. So thank you for joining our party.
Before I introduce Supervisor, just a couple of quick notes that I want to make in addition. First of all, I want to acknowledge my good friend and partner, the Commissioner of the Monroe County Board of Elections, Democrat Commissioner Tom Faraci, who's going to accept the form and deliver it to make this change official. But two quick points that I want to make. First is, people have changed parties before. What I find unique about this is, first of all, it's a big town, so this is important to us. But the courage that it takes to change parties before an election. And we've seen a lot of people do it after an election. But in this case, voters are going to know in advance what Mike Yudelson is about. Making a significant change like this a month before an election is really an act of courage to say, this is what I believe, I want you to know this before you go to the polls, so you'll be prepared to cast your decision and factor that in. The second thing is, just on a personal level, and Mike's going to introduce his family who are here with us, but his son, Alex, who's here to my right in the tie, Alex is, I think it's fair to say, an avowed Democrat. And last year, Alex joined myself and others, Tad Mack, our executive director, as a delegate to the Democratic National Convention. And when we were putting together the slate and Alex's name was being talked about, I called Mike Yudelson as a courtesy and said, look, I know your son would like to be a delegate to the National Convention. We'd like to have him. But obviously this would be complicated for you as an elected Republican. And I just want to make sure, both as a father and as an elected official and someone who represents your party, that you're comfortable with that. And Mike did not hesitate for a second. He cared about what this experience would be for Alex. He respected Alex's beliefs on it. And it said a great deal to me about the kind of person that Mike Yudelson is, that despite, at the time, whatever difference he might have had, that he was more interested in the well-being of his son and felt that he needed to express himself in the way that he was most comfortable. So, without further ado, let me introduce a new member of the Democratic family, someone we're very, very excited to have on our side, the Supervisor of the town of Henrietta, Mike Yudelson.
Thank you and good afternoon to everyone. Before I begin, I would like to introduce my family, who I'm very proud to have here with me today. Joe mentioned my son Alex, and this is my fiance Karen, and my twins Alyssa and Cameron. And I appreciate them. They are great support to me, and I appreciate everything they do, and I'm glad they're here today. So let me just make some comments about why I've decided to make this change and why at this time. Like citizens across the country, I have found the events leading up to and during the current government shutdown unacceptable. Each headline is more disturbing than the next. Shutdown leaves kin of dead soldiers without money for funerals, inspectors not available as salmonella outbreak continues, national parks and monuments closed. This government shutdown is hurting people every day, and it's hurting everyday people. There's enough blame to go all around Washington. However, a few days ago, I read a column in the New York Times that pointed out what's been reported by others as well, that a small group of Republicans in the House of Representatives have been planning for months to shut down the government in order to push their personal political ambitions and ideologies. That is totally abhorrent to me. Here at home in the past few months, a small group of Republicans have been taking the great work that the Henrietta Town Board and employees have been doing over the past 6 years that I've been supervisor, and manipulating that information to the public in order to push their personal political ambitions and agendas and to hurt me. The attacks have been offensive to me and to other town board members and to the many town employees who work day in and day out to make sure that our town government functions in a way that our great community deserves. I believe in personal accountability. I believe in practicing what we preach. And that is why today, after months of soul searching and watching what a small group of Republicans have done on the national level and in Henrietta, I have decided to switch my party registration from the Republican Party to the Democratic Party. Why today? Well, two reasons. As Assemblyman Morelli mentioned, I did not want to go into the election not being totally upfront with the voters, and also today because it's the last day you can do it. Now, this is a very personal decision that I put a great deal of thought into. I've never looked at my job as supervisor in Henrietta as a Republican or a Democratic job. There's no Democratic or Republican way to plow the streets, run our recreation programs, operate our senior center, or work with the employees in the town hall to serve our constituents. But there is a right way and a wrong way. As Henrietta's supervisor, this change changes nothing about the way I will conduct myself. I will be still fiscally conservative. During the time that I've been supervisor, we have not increased the tax rate at all, and my 2014 budget will not include an increase either. I will still be the biggest advocate for youth and seniors in our community. And I will continue to make a priority that town government and I are accessible and responsive to the public. And I will still look for ways to make our government more effective and productive. This is the right way to do things. I and many others believe that the town of Henrietta has been doing things the right way during my time as supervisor. My opponent has voted with me on more than 99% of the town board resolutions during his time in office, and until he announced just a few months ago that he was going to run against me, he has never voiced any of the criticisms that he has manufactured now. So I would assume that he knows we are on the right path and is doing this for personal ambition and political convenience. That is not the right way to do things. I'm very pleased to be standing here with Henrietta's Assemblyman Harry Bronson, Commissioner Faraci, and especially New York State Majority Leader Joe Morelli, a good friend who I've worked with many times on various issues related to Henrietta. He mentioned the situation with the Genesee Valley Regional Market. Working together on that, we were able to preserve 2,000 jobs in Henrietta, and there's 170 businesses that depend on the regional market. When doing this, we were not trying to figure out how this would help or hurt political parties. Assemblyman Morelli doesn't even represent Henrietta. We did this because it was in the best interest of the community. That's the right way to do things. There are many Republicans, I just want to say this is important to me to note that there are many Republicans who have treated me with kindness and respect and supported me during the past decade. I've developed great personal relationships with many of them and people of all parties. I look forward to continuing to work with them to figure out ways to make Henrietta better, as we've been doing for the past decade. What these other small groups of Republicans, both nationally and locally, have been engaged in does not represent the values of America and the Henrietta that I know and love. The Henrietta that I know and love is one that has diverse opinions, talents, races, and religions, all of which come together for the common good. Its residents do not seek to divide the community for personal gain. My party registration will not change the fact that I will continue to put people over politics, because that is what the Henrietta I know is all about. President John F. Kennedy said, "Let us not seek the Republican answer or the Democratic answer, but the right answer. Let us accept our own responsibility for the future." I'm just one person, one elected official, but this is how I will meet President Kennedy's challenge. This is how I will attempt to take responsibility and make a point that I believe it's important to make. Thank you very much.
I'm going to do the official task at hand, which is the signature. I asked Mike to come over here and sign the form, and we'll convey it to Commissioner Faraci. Okay. You filled out the right box.
Looks good. We'll make sure this gets filed for you today.
Thank you.
Congratulations.